very kind introduction. Allow me as well to thank your Master of Ceremonies, Alicia. And I didn't know that my Minister of Finance could crack a few jokes. The Honorable Favour Williams, our Minister of Finance, and Mr. Senia Goff, President of the Pension Industry Association of Jamaica, and members of the Board of Directors and Management of the PIAJ, Ms. Nicolette Jenez, Deputy Executive Director of the FSC, public sector representatives of ministries, departments, and agencies who may be here, stakeholders of the pension industry, the private sector and other civil society representatives, and most important, our pensioners. Are there any pensioners in the room? I acknowledge you. And of course, members of the media. I'm pleased to join you for the 2026 annual Luncheon of the Pension Industry Association of Jamaica. This event is a forum for a national conversation about financial security, retirement planning, and Jamaica's future. I acknowledge the leadership of the PIAJ and in particular, its president, Ms. Senia Goff. Whose work has advanced a serious conversation on pension reform. I also acknowledge the regulators, financial institutions, trustees, administrators, actuaries, employers, and policymakers here today. At my informal conversation at the table, I get a sense of people and their passion, what drives them. And in just talking to the executives of the PIAJ and the regulator, I get a sense that Jamaica's pension industry is in good hands. Your work may not always attract headlines, and indeed it shouldn't. But it matters deeply. It matters to the workers who want to retire with dignity. It matters to the family that should not be pushed into financial distress when a breadwinner grows old. It matters to the state, which must manage future social obligations responsibly. And it matters to the economy because pension savings are among the most important sources of long-term capital available to the country for national development. Pensions are sometimes treated as technical, distant, or relevant only to those approaching retirement. That is a mistake. Pensions are about national development. They are about whether work leads to security, whether savings becomes investments, whether aging ensures dignity rather than vulnerability, whether the Jamaican household is resilient enough to withstand the shocks of life, and whether the Jamaican economy is deep enough to finance its own future. Jamaica is undergoing major demographic and economic change. Our population is aging. Birth rates are declining. And I don't want to get into that here. Because whenever we raise this issue, you know what the retort is. But we'll explore that at another time. And people generally are living longer. Work is also changing. More Jamaicans are engaging in contract work, freelance work, digital work, domestic work, transport services, vending, microenterprise, and self-employment. I don't know if this covered influencers and social media. That's another whole new category of work. These changes create opportunity, but they also expose serious gaps in our social and financial architecture. Too many Jamaicans work hard for decades without adequate retirement protection. Too many reach old age dependent on family support, limited savings, or the state. Too many younger workers still believe that retirement planning is something to be postponed until later. But later comes quickly. And when later comes without preparation, it becomes a burden on the individual, on the family, and on the country. That is why the work of the PIAJ matters. You operate at the intersection of public policy, capital markets, social protection, household resilience, and national planning. Pensions are instruments of stability. They protect people, deepen capital markets, support long-term investment, and reduce future vulnerabilities. The government recognizes this. A modern pension system must be inclusive, sustainable, well-regulated, trusted, and accessible. Voluntary participation alone will not close the coverage gap. If fewer than 1 in 5 workers in Jamaica's workplace is enrolled in private pension arrangements, then the existing model is not reaching enough people. This is why the proposal on pension auto-enrollment is worth serious consideration. Well, let me rephrase that. This is why the government will implement pension auto-enrollment. I was convinced of this by speaking with your president. She's very passionate about it, and she gave me the thesis behind it while I was having lunch. She even went on to say, behavioral economists say. Many people intend to save. It is their wish and their intentions. In fact, your president was pointing out to me that Jamaicans are natural savers. What do you think the partner is all about? And I don't know if I agree fully. I think we do have a culture of putting something aside, but I believe our culture is changing to be very instantaneous in terms of our gratification. Many persons are not convinced about what will happen in the future, and therefore they believe it's best to have it now. That kind of thinking, it is not the best for being economistic. It is not the best for investments. And it therefore makes the point that the state has to act in a way to support the development of a culture of savings and In schools, we used to have, almost forced savings where you would, for financial literacy, you would be assisted in establishing your bank accounts and savings clubs. I don't know if these things still happen in our schools. We have instituted certain policies for youth development where when we employ them under apprenticeship systems, we have a kind of forced savings where we take a part of their pay, help them to open their bank accounts and save. This is not forced savings, but what this does is to bring into the formal system the pensioner and have them registered up front. They can opt out if they want to. But the psychology, as was pointed out by your president, Ms. Goff, is that once you're registered, you probably stay. Whether or not you contribute, I think the probability is higher that you will actually contribute. So I totally agree with the position and the proposal of auto-enrollment. Many people intend to save, but the truth is they will delay. Many workers postpone action because the process feels complex and distant. Again, let me use the opportunity to say bureaucracy is a deterrent in many instances. Auto-enrollment changes the default. It makes participation the normal starting point while preserving choice. It shifts the system from waiting for workers to opt in to including them by design, while allowing them the option to opt out, which I hope they don't do. This would be a consequential structural reform. It can increase participation in the formal private sector, build a culture of long-term savings, support financial discipline at the household level, and help to reduce old age poverty. But auto-enrollment alone will not solve the problem. Many Jamaicans operate outside traditional employer-sponsored arrangements. The vendor, the taxi operator, the domestic worker, the farmer, the shopkeeper, the freelancer, and contract workers moving between jobs all deserve a pathway to retirement security. That is why micropensions, another innovation that your president and your board is championing, must be a part of the national conversation about strengthening our pension system. A micropension framework can extend regulated retirement savings to workers with irregular incomes, seasonal earnings, or no single formal employer. It can allow flexible contributions, use digital platforms, connect with mobile payment systems, and lower barriers to entry. It sends a clear message. Retirement security is for every Jamaican who works, contributes, and seeks a secure future. Pension reform must also deal with adequacy and fairness. Phase 2 reforms has been discussed for too long. Issues such as vesting, portability, preservation of benefits, indexation, dependent disability pensions, hardship withdrawals, and contribution holidays are not abstract legal matters. They affect real workers in real circumstances, and you would have received before me the undertaking of the Minister of Finance to have these matters addressed in a timely and expedited fashion. And I know she is very committed to seeing the Phase 2 reforms come to fruition. A worker should not lose the benefit of years of service because he or she changes employment. A modern A modern labor market requires portability. A worker facing terminal illness or severe hardship should not be trapped by rules that were designed for normal times but cannot respond to exceptional circumstances. At the same time, we must protect the core purpose of pensions. Retirement savings cannot become ordinary savings. Access must be limited, controlled, transparent, and carefully regulated. Hurricane Melissa has reminded us that resilience is not theoretical. Shocks come, disasters come. Families face sudden hardships. Businesses face disruptions. Workers face uncertainty. So the question is not whether the pension system should adapt. The question is whether we can adapt in a way that preserves long-term security while providing carefully designed flexibility for moments of national or personal crisis. The balance must be struck. Pension funds must also perform their investment function effectively. Contributors need confidence that their savings are managed prudently, professionally, and with a long-term view. That requires strong governance, capable trustees, clear investment policies, transparency, proper valuation, and strong regulatory supervision. But prudence must not become paralysis. This is not a statement only for the regulation of the pensions industry. This is a statement of Jamaica's bureaucratic posture. A pension system that is too narrowly confined cannot deliver the diversification, returns, and resilience that contributors need over the working lifetime. Pension capital is long-term capital. It is patient capital. It is naturally suited to long-horizon investments, including infrastructure, housing, energy, logistics, and productive enterprises, provided those investments are well-governed, properly structured, commercially sound, and consistent with fiduciary duty. This is why recent reforms announced by the Minister of Finance are important. The government has signaled a measured expansion of the investment limits for pension funds, including the phased increase in the share of assets that may be invested in private companies, as well as greater flexibility for foreign currency exposure for pension funds and insurance companies. These reforms are not about recklessness, they are about modernization. They are about allowing pension funds and insurance companies to diversify responsibly, strengthen long-term returns, and participate more meaningfully in Jamaica's development. This is especially important in the post-Melissa context. Jamaica's reconstruction cannot be financed by government alone. We will use concessional financing. We will use climate and resilience financing. We will use public-private partnerships. But we must also mobilize Jamaica's own savings. The long-term capital held in pension funds and insurance companies to help finance the infrastructure backbone of national reconstruction. And I will say this, much of what we will undertake in our national reconstruction and resilience building program will create long-term assets for the public good, for which the public must use, and which will generate long-term streams of reliable income. And that is the place where, that's a sweet spot for pension funds. And we must find a way to have a channel for our pension funds to participate in infrastructure reconstruction. That is how mature economies develop. They convert savings into investment. They convert investment into infrastructure. They convert infrastructure into productivity. And they convert productivity into higher wages and higher living standards. Yes. There is this false notion that you get higher wages by wage negotiations. That's a falsehood that every worker by now should realize. Increase in wages that are not backed by increase in productivity is only inflationary, which drives another cycle of wage negotiations, and you're constantly increasing the nominal value of your wage without truly improving the quality of your life. At every opportunity to say this, I say it, because the thinking of the Jamaican worker must change. We already have examples of what can happen when infrastructure assets are properly structured and opened to Jamaican investors. Trans-Jamaica Highway is one such example. It has allowed ordinary Jamaicans and institutional investors to participate in a national infrastructure asset. Its performance on the Jamaica Stock Exchange in recent years has demonstrated that infrastructure, when commercially viable and properly governed, can be both a development asset and an investment opportunity. But let me be clear, this is not an argument for indiscriminate investment. It is an argument for disciplined opportunity. Pension funds must never be treated as a convenient pool of money for weak projects. Contributors' savings must be protected. Investments must be driven by prudence, value, governance, risk management, and long-term suitability. The objective is not to force pension capital into national development. The objective is to create bankable national development projects that pension capital can responsibly support. That distinction is critical. Reform must also address operational efficiency and public confidence. If we want to expand participation, the system must be able to scale. Delays in approvals, audit bottlenecks, administrative complexity, a nice word for bureaucracy, and regulatory uncertainty can weaken confidence and slow reform. Public education is therefore equally important. People must understand what pensions are, how they work, why starting early matters, and how small contributions today can create security tomorrow. A pension statement must not feel like a mystery, like looking at your light bill. Another area of reform that we are already working on. It must feel like ownership. It must feel like the worker can see a future being built step by step. We must also speak more directly to young people. Retirement may feel distant at 25 and 30. Yes, I can identify with that. Because retirement for me is a long way away. But the greatest advantage a young worker has is time. Time turns modest savings into meaningful assets. Time rewards consistency. Time is the friend of the disciplined saver. Do not wait. That is the message to our young people. Do not wait. Start saving yesterday. Retirement is closer than you think. Because the target shouldn't be to retire at the set day. The target is to save up enough so that you can retire when you want, even before you have to. So just start saving. Start planning for your pension. I think there has to be also a kind of national conversation about our pension and social security. Jamaica has a very robust care economy where care for the elderly, it is not formalized. As a politician, I deal with these issues almost every day. You know, the community forms the first concentric circle around the individual. And if you stop to think of the number of elderly retired persons who are not pensioners, who have no pension to get, how do they live? Who takes care of them? Who gives them dinner on a Sunday? Who combs their hair and looks in on them? Sometimes it's not even family. Sometimes it's the person next door or some conscientious Jamaican. So we do have this very strong and robust informal care economy. And then there is this notion that children are your pension. Yes, I have encountered this many times when I'm told that, I have, 5, 6 children. One of them must come out to something to support my pension. And of course, what we see is that sometimes all 6 kids are in such difficult circumstances, they are not able to. So a part of the public education is to say to our workers, our young people, that we need to stop this thinking that children are our pension. Yes, it's a blessing when your children are able to come and support you, but they may not be able to. And so a formal savings for your retirement is an absolute necessity. So Jamaica has done difficult things before. We have stabilized our economy, reduced public debt, strengthened our institutions, and improved our credibility. Those gains came through discipline, partnership, and long-term thinking. The next generation of reform must focus not only on the balance sheet of the state, but on the balance sheet of the Jamaican household. A country is not truly resilient if households are financially fragile. A country is not fully developed if its citizens are left in insecurity after a lifetime of work. A country cannot speak seriously about prosperity if too many of its workers reach retirement with no adequate income, no accumulated savings, and no cushion against shocks and vulnerabilities. Retirement security is therefore national security and must be a national priority. We are committed to reforms that expand coverage, strengthen adequacy, protect contributors, modernize investment rules, improve portability, encourage micropensions, and support the responsible deployment of long-term capital for national development. We want a Jamaica where work leads to security, where savings become investments, where aging does not mean vulnerability, where pensions help build homes, roads, energy systems, enterprises, and infrastructure, where the Jamaican worker is not only a contributor to national development, but a beneficiary and an owner in that development. That is the deeper promise of pension reform. It is not only about retirement, it is about resilience. It is, above all, about dignity. It is about ownership. It is about building a Jamaica where our people can live, work, save, invest, age, and retire in confidence and in paradise. That is the Jamaica we are building.
The Most Honorable Prime Minister, we thank you for your insightful and thought-provoking address. I know that you learned a lot today about the pensions industry sitting next to our passionate President, Goff, as I was eavesdropping on the class that was in session during lunch. As you said, pensions are not important only for persons who are at the age of retirement, but for everyone, especially with the shifting demographics of the country. Later comes quickly, and we do not want that to be a burden. Therefore, we at the PIAJ will continue to work with the government to do our part to reduce the burden on Jamaica and to make retirement security a national security. And I'd like to now call to the stage our director, Mrs. Janice Robinson Longmore, to present a token to you. Thank you, Prime Minister. We have now come to the close of this year's luncheon. Please welcome to the stage